up all that well if you look at our shear rate product. So here's the circled area here. You can kind of see how the reds and the greens are touching. That is a really good indicator that we're talking about some really tight rotation. And again, this entire system moving to the northeast at about 45 miles per hour. So let's go to that shear rate product. Okay, and look at this. The wind shear is not all that impressive, and that's a little bit of good news, because if we were talking about the really tight velocity, and then if we were talking about an area of really increased wind shear, then I would be much more concerned that we're potentially talking about a tornado on the ground. And as of right now, this is simply radar indicated, and there's a really good way of telling that. One, the downstream tornado warning, okay, that is a red box. If we were talking about a confirmed tornado on the ground, this red box would be flashing purple. Now, the flashing purple box, yes, I understand it's there. It's a little bit confusing. That box just simply has not gone away yet. The other flashing tornado warning here in the red box, that is our current tornado warning. That is currently what we're talking about across northwest Alabama, and that one currently runs until 11:15. And then we kind of have this downstream tornado warning that is going to run until 11:45. So this is our correlation coefficient. If I thought there was any sort of debris on the ground, then this would be kind of highlighted in a bright yellow, kind of a bluish shade, and that's not something we're seeing. So I believe I am somewhat confident in saying that I don't think that there is a tornado on the ground just yet. We have no confirmed reports anyway that a tornado is on the ground. If you're in Anderson, you need to be getting into your tornado safe place. As a matter of fact, you should already be there. Even if you're in Powell, I think you need to be in your tornado safe place. While it looks like the main area of rotation is going to sit just to the south of Powell, the rotation kind of Anderson up to Powell and then down to Whitehead. So kind of this whole entire area, I'll go ahead and circle this again as the radar has once again updated. So if we look at this whole thing here, we're going Whitehead up to Anderson, up to Powell. The rotation is kind of impressive within all of this. So then we can flip that back over to our shear rate, and that lines up almost perfectly with our area of increased wind shear. Now again, the wind shear is really not all that impressive. Yes, it's there, but it's not all that impressive, which is a little bit of good news. So we're going to take that news and we're going to run with it. So let's look at our radar. We're also talking about some incredibly heavy rain. And this is something, again, I know Emily was talking about while she was with you for about the last hour. She was talking about how, one, it's nighttime. It's just after 11 o'clock at night. And two, we're talking about some incredibly heavy rain. And that is going to lead to another level of danger, right? We're talking about the fact that it's nighttime, and we're talking about the incredibly heavy rain. That means if there is a tornado on the ground, it is going to be almost impossible to see because it's 11 o'clock at night, and whatever tornado may or may not be on the ground is going to be rain wrapped, because we are talking about some incredibly heavy rain. So on top of all of that, I also think flash flooding is going to end up being a concern over the next several minutes, because I would not be the least bit surprised if we get 1 to 2 inches of rain in a very short period of time where this thunderstorm is the strongest. So again, if you're in Anderson, if you're in Powell, really need to be in your tornado safe place. Looks like this storm is going to continue to move to the northeast, and I'm going to switch it back over to our velocity product. And then I'll attempt to put a storm track on this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to track this from Anderson, and then we'll drag this out over the next, this storm is moving at about 45 miles per hour to the northeast. So let's drag this out, and we'll kind of follow this northeasterly pattern here and go out over the next several minutes. So if you see your city in the box here, then you really need to be thinking about getting into your tornado safe place. Salem within the next 10 minutes, Legtown within the next 13 minutes, Bethel in the next 15 minutes, Elkmont in 20 minutes, Lester's in 21 minutes, Poplar Hill in the next 23 minutes, Aspen Hill in the next 23 minutes, Elkton in the next 28 minutes. Now, this is assuming this storm holds itself together over the next 25, 30 minutes and continues to push its way up into Limestone County. Now, if you're watching us from Athens this evening, okay, this is well to the north of Athens. You are not included in any sort of tornado warning in Athens. We are talking about northern Limestone County. Again, we're talking about places like Bethel, we're talking about Elkmont, Lester's, Poplar Hill, Aspen Hill, Elkton, again, in the next 28 minutes. So we're talking about places in northern Limestone County. And for a point of reference, I know we're zoomed in really far here. This thicker black line here, this is going to be the Alabama-Tennessee state line. So we're talking about northern Limestone County. So if you're in Athens this evening, you're just fine. You're not even included in the tornado warning. So that's what we're looking at right now. I'm going to take that off for just a second. Radar just updated, new radar scan. We get a new radar scan every couple of minutes, so it allows us to provide incredibly fast, up-to-date information. So here's what's happened over the last couple of minutes. And again, we were talking about this. Emily was talking about this. I've already been talking about this. It looks like that rotation has broadened up. It looks like that rotation has kind of slacked off a little bit. And here's how I can tell that, okay? So we kind of have the reds and the greens, that's wind moving towards and away from the radar. The closer those two are together, the tighter that rotation is going to be because that's wind moving in two different directions. When you begin to introduce this gray shaded area here, kind of like we see at this point sitting just to the east of Anderson, sitting just to the east of Powell, see how we're beginning to include this gray shaded area in between the reds and the greens. That means that this rotation is beginning to broaden up just a little bit. And when you're talking about broader rotation, that means you're talking about less of a chance that a tornado is on the ground. We do have a new tornado warning that is going to be for Giles County, and that is going to run until 11:45. So new tornado warning for Giles County, and that is going to run until 11:45. And I'm going to go ahead and assume that the National Weather Service office in Nashville, now Nashville actually has control over Giles County. I'm going to assume that they're probably talking about this storm here that we're focused on that's beginning to move into Limestone County, and assuming that this storm is going to track to the northeast and then up into Giles County. So what's going to happen is it's going to move through northern Limestone County and then head up into Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. So the National Weather Service office up in Nashville has chosen to extend or actually issue a tornado warning, and that tornado warning is going to run until 11:45. So let's take it back over to our correlation coefficient. I don't necessarily believe this here towards Minor Hill. I don't necessarily believe that because that's incredibly displaced from our main area of interest there. So see, we had that highlight on the correlation coefficient all the way up in Minor Hill, but the area that we're watching really close still going to be here down towards Anderson, just to the east of Powell, and then just to the west of Lester. So if you're in Lester, you need to be getting into your tornado safe place. So that's what we're talking about this evening. Again, beginning to see an area of rotation move up into northern Limestone County. Here's Cairo, here's Gypsy, Legtown, and then you head into Elkmont, Thatch. It looks like this is going to avoid all of those places, maybe head into Legtown, Bethel, and then head into Lester first, and then head up into Giles County. These storms have been moving to the east-northeast. Over the last couple of hours, we've made it into Limestone County, so the northeasterly track has become a little more east-northeast. What we saw through a good chunk of the afternoon that kept us quiet across the Tennessee Valley was showers and thunderstorms that were moving almost directly to the northeast and missing much of the Tennessee Valley, but it kind of looks like these storms have begun to move east-northeast, which is pulling them a little further into North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. And again, we do have the tornado watch. The tornado watch is in effect for everybody except Northeast Alabama. So Jackson, DeKalb, and Marshall counties not included in the tornado watch. Everybody else talking about the tornado watch, and the tornado watch is going to run until 3 o'clock in the morning. But if we look back, okay, let's go all the way back to northeast Mississippi for just a second. This activity is quiet. So we're back across northeast Mississippi, Tupelo, heading down into Houston, Bruce. If you're familiar with northeast Mississippi, you probably know some of these places. We're not talking about even any severe thunderstorm warnings here, but at the same time, it's also important to note that the environment back across northeast Mississippi is incredibly worked over. Now, at the same time, the environment across North Alabama isn't the greatest environment. It's not the greatest environment that's going to be super conducive for the development of severe weather. Emily and I were talking about this earlier this afternoon. She was telling me that dew points were in the lower 60s across the Tennessee Valley. Dew points in the lower 60s are borderline. They're hardly considered minimal, which means we really don't have a lot of moisture in our atmosphere, especially when you consider how warm we were this afternoon. Temperatures climbed into the mid and upper 80s. I didn't see exact high temperatures, but I know many of us made it into the mid and upper 80s this afternoon. So to only be talking about dew points in the lower 60s, that's not a lot of moisture to work with. Normally, if you're talking about an environment that is super conducive for the development of severe weather, you'd be talking about dew points in the mid and upper 60s, 65, 66, 67 degrees. So the fact that we were only talking about dew points in the lower 60s through the afternoon, that's going to be a little bit of good news for us. So let's zoom back in here. I want to head back into northern Limestone County. Looks like we're sitting just to the south of Lexington, just to the north of Rogersville. Let's pull up our velocity image and see what we're looking at. As a matter of fact, it looks like we're kind of beginning to slide into that new tornado warning here. So if you're in Elkmont, you need to be in your tornado safe place. Looks like this activity going to move to the northeast in such a way that it's probably going to miss Minor Hill. Still, if you're in Minor Hill up in southern Middle Tennessee, you need to be in your tornado safe place. If you know anybody in Ardmore, give them a call. Tell them to get into their tornado safe place. They're certainly going to want to be there. They still have a couple of minutes. If you're in Elkmont, you have just a couple of minutes, but you certainly don't want to waste that couple of minutes, right? So you want to make sure you have an ample amount of time to get into your tornado safe place. So if you're in Elkmont, you're going to want to get there. If you're in Ardmore, you're going to want to head there. This storm's still a couple of minutes from you yet, but you're going to want to get into your tornado safe place. So let's zoom in on this. Bethel, I think you're going to want to get into your tornado safe place as well. So Good Springs, Salem, again, need to be in your tornado safe place. Leicester, you need to be in your tornado safe place. I mentioned Bethel. Looks like we're sitting just to the north of Cairo. So if you're in Cairo, you're probably good. Now, we're still talking about relatively broad rotation here, but actually, if you look right over Leicester, and I'll go ahead and circle this, this is where the rotation seems to be the tightest. So we're going to be talking about an area here right over Leicester, and then a secondary area here kind of just to the south of Leicester. Looks like we're talking about some reasonably tight rotation. And if we go over to our wind shear image, then you can kind of see that we are talking about some increased wind shear. Now, it's not all that impressive, but impressive enough that we're seeing some increased wind shear. Again, wind shear, a change in wind speed and wind direction as you go up in altitude. So back to our velocity image again. It kind of looks like we're paying attention to this area, Leicester, and then just barely to the south, just to the north of Cairo. So something we're going to continue to watch over the next several minutes. Looks like this activity is going to avoid much of Limestone County. Here's the I-65 corridor. We're still several miles away yet from the I-65 corridor. So again, tornado warning in effect for Giles County until 11:45. And then, it also looks like Lauderdale County no longer under the tornado warning. So at this point, I believe what we have is just Limestone County, I believe, are going to be the only ones in North Alabama under the tornado warning, and that's going to run until 11:45 p.m. So Limestone County in North Alabama, they're under a tornado warning until 11:45, and then Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee, they're also going to be under a tornado warning until 11:45. Limestone remains with the warning set to expire at 11:45. And then again, we have Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. They're also going to be talking about the same tornado warning, pretty much the same tornado warning, same storm. And that is also going to run until 11:45. Have not seen any sort of damage reports yet, so definitely a little bit of good news there. As a matter of fact, I kind of want to switch this over to the Huntsville radar at this point as we kind of continue to head further and further into Limestone County. We're going to begin to lose the quality of the Columbus, Mississippi radar. A lot of lightning associated with this storm. So lightning, thunder and lightning going to be a big concern. Wind gusts in excess of 60 or 70 miles per hour going to be a big concern. And then I can guarantee if we throw on the hail swath, we'll see that this storm still has a history of producing some hail. And this storm has been producing hail for a very long time, really through its entire lifespan, and it continues to produce hail even as it moved up through Lexington, and now we're heading into Limestone County and then heading up into southern Middle Tennessee. This storm still has a history of producing some significant hail, so that's also something that we're going to want to be mindful of. Looks like the most powerful portion of this storm heading into Limestone County now. So again, if you're in Leicester, you need to be in your tornado safe place. Bethel, you really need to be in your tornado safe place. Now, even if you're in Salem, it looks like the area of interest is going to be just barely to the north of Salem. But I still think if you're in Salem, you're going to want to be in your tornado safe place. And again, as a point of reference here, this straight yellow line, that's going to be the I-65 corridor. So that kind of gives you some perspective as to where we are in Limestone County. And then this is the Alabama-Tennessee state line. So Alabama-Tennessee state line, just kind of the long straight line here. And then here's the I-65 corridor. So that gives you a little bit of perspective as to where we're at. So two tornado warnings in play across North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. The first is going to be for Limestone County, and that's going to run until 11:45 p.m. The second is going to be for Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee, and that is also going to run until 11:45 p.m. Now, on top of all of that, we do still have the tornado watch. The tornado watch is going to be in effect for the entire Tennessee Valley, with the exception of Jackson, DeKalb, and Marshall counties. That tornado watch is going to run until 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So tornado watch going to run until 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. We do have the tornado warning in effect for Limestone County and Giles County. Those are both going to run until 11:45. So still about another half hour on both of those yet. Behind that, okay, so Florence down into Russellville, we're talking about some incredibly heavy rain. I would also anticipate that we're still talking about some thunder and lightning associated with this. Not even a ton of lightning at this point, which is a really solid indicator that we're just talking about some run-of-the-mill thunderstorms. None of this is warned. We have no severe thunderstorm warnings here. Florence all the way down to Russellville, Lauderdale, Colbert, down into Franklin County, back into Iuka, Mississippi, back into Corinth, Mississippi. No severe thunderstorm warnings, no tornado warnings, so that's definitely a little bit of good news. So the only tornado warning we have is going to be Limestone County and then Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. And again, we're talking about an area that is far northern Limestone County, well to the north of Athens at this point. If you're in Athens, maybe you're beginning to see a little bit of rain at this point. Probably not, though. If you're in Elkmont, I want you to be getting into your tornado safe place. If you're in Ardmore, you also need to be getting into your tornado safe place. So look at this, Minor Hill all the way up into Pulaski. You're getting a lot of incredibly heavy rain. You're getting some incredibly gusty winds. At this point, if you're in Minor Hill up into Pulaski, you need to be in your tornado safe place. You're talking about those wind gusts, 60 to 70 miles per hour. Maybe you're hearing a little bit of hail outside. There's a lot of thunder. There is an incredible amount of lightning within this little part of the storm. And this is mostly up in southern Middle Tennessee. It kind of looks like the strongest part of this storm hanging out up in southern Middle Tennessee, Minor Hill, all the way up into Pulaski, where you're talking about that heavy rain, that incredible amount of lightning, probably talking about a little bit of hail, and then those wind gusts 60 to 70 miles per hour. I'm also going to take off the lightning counter for just a second because I want to switch it back over to our velocity product. And I want to find, let's zoom in here. Looks like, Emily, they went, did they go confirmed on the Limestone County tornado warning? Did they say where the tornado was confirmed?
It just says that it was confirmed. It was confirmed for the northern part of Limestone County.
Okay, so confirmed tornado on the ground. I'm going to open up our discussion with the National Weather Service. I'm just curious to see. Has been updated to reflect a confirmed report of a tree down Lester and 99. Okay, so all we know is that this is a confirmed tornado. So here's what I want to do. I want to go ahead and circle this area of, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to go ahead and take that off. And this is going to be the area that we're watching. So reports of a tree down back in Lester now, that could be because of the wind, but that at the same time could also be because of a tornado. And we've kind of been watching this area of rotation for the last several minutes. So if you're in Bethel, you need to be in your tornado safe place because this is knocking on your door right now. If you're in Poplar Hill, really need to be in your tornado safe place. If you're in Veto, again, need to be in your tornado safe place because we are talking about what is now a confirmed tornado. Now, again, still not seeing a lot on our correlation coefficient. That would indicate a lot of big debris being thrown up into the air. So a little bit of good news there, but we do have reports of a confirmed tornado, and this is definitely going to be the area that we're going to continue to watch here in between Lester in Bethel. Again, if you're in Bethel, this is literally right over Bethel right now. So if you're in Bethel, you need to be in your tornado safe place. And then if you're in Poplar Hill, this is going to be moving into Poplar Hill probably within the next 3 to 5 minutes. So you're going to want to be in your tornado safe place as well. Again, confirmed reports of a tornado in northern Limestone County. We don't know exactly where in northern Limestone County. We have a really good idea, and it's probably somewhere back here right around Lester is where that tornado is probably reported, just based on the overall storm track and how we've been following this velocity signature over the last couple of minutes. So again, Bethel, really need to be getting into your tornado safe place. Let's look at our shear rate again. We're talking about an area of increased wind shear. The wind shear gets a little bit higher there up into southern Middle Tennessee. I want to go ahead and switch radars for just a quick second. Nope, we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the Columbus radar because that still looks like it's going to be our best bet here in northern Limestone County. So again, if you are in Bethel, you really need to be in your tornado safe place towards Poplar Hill. You need to be in your tornado safe place. We're watching this entire area right here. I'm going to go ahead and circle this entire area. Now, this is far northern Limestone County, more up into southern Middle Tennessee at this point. I'm going to go ahead and redraw my circle. So this is going to be far northern Limestone County, mostly up into southern Middle Tennessee. As a matter of fact, it looks like the main area has at this point completely moved up into southern Middle Tennessee. So it looks like a lot of this activity has since moved out of northern Limestone County, and we're talking about our main area of interest sitting up in southern Middle Tennessee. If you're in Lester's, you need to be in your tornado safe place. Poplar Hill, you need to be in your tornado safe place. If you're in Elkton, now we're beginning to think about the I-65 corridor. You're also going to want to be in your tornado safe place. Tornado warning going to be in effect for Limestone and Giles County. Limestone County in North Alabama, Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee. Both of those tornado warnings going to run until 11:45. Again, as far as Limestone County is concerned, that is a confirmed tornado. Now, have not heard out of Giles County if they're going to go with the confirmed tag just yet, but technically this tornado was reported as confirmed in Limestone County. Have not heard if this is a tornado that is potentially still on the ground. Beginning to move up into southern Middle Tennessee, and it looks like the rotation could be broadening a little bit, but I don't necessarily want to take that as good news, because here's what happens when we begin to get into this part of the Tennessee Valley, this kind of portion of Giles County, this portion of Limestone County in North Alabama, where we're sitting just barely to the west of I-65. Again, here's I-65. It's really hard to find good radar data in this exact spot. At this point, we're kind of beginning to lose the Columbus radar, but we're not exactly in a position yet where we can begin to transition over to the radar out at Huntsville High Top. So it gets really interesting here, and we have to do a lot of radar interpretation when we're getting to this point to talk about and figure out if what we're actually seeing on radar is truly the case. So this is something we're going to continue to pay attention to. The area of highest wind shear, where you're getting into some of the brightest greens, getting into some of the darker reds in northern Limestone County, it actually kind of looks like that's going to be displaced a little bit from our area of greatest rotation. And now where we're kind of beginning to build in some of the grays, again, indicating some areas of broader rotation, but we're also getting to that point where I want to go ahead and check with the Huntsville radar to see if the Huntsville radar is picking up on the same thing or maybe picking up on something different. And the Huntsville radar is also at this point indicating some relatively broad rotation. So with that, I can kind of feel a level of confidence in maybe confirming that this tornado warned storm anyway, is beginning to weaken just a little bit. So we're going to continue to work with both radars. I'm going to use the Columbus one for just the next couple of minutes until this storm moves a little bit further to the east. So, going to continue to pay attention to both of these tornado warnings. Tornado warning in effect for Giles County up in southern Middle Tennessee and Limestone County here in North Alabama. Both of those tornado warnings are going to run until 11:45. This storm beginning to move a little further to the north now. At this point, it's kind of beginning to move directly to the north, and it looks like our main area of focus at this point has moved out of Limestone County and is beginning to move up into southern Middle Tennessee. Maybe the storm's intensifying a little bit. You can kind of see how we're talking about some of the darker reds getting into more of these brighter purples, kind of beginning to transition a little bit into some of these pinks. So it kind of looks like this storm could be strengthening, but at the same time, we could also be having the problem where we're just getting simply too far away from the Columbus radar site. So look at this, just to the north of Poplar Hill. Look how this rotation is really tightened. The reds and the greens are essentially touching. That's going to be a bit concerning. Now, it is going to align a little bit with an area of increased wind shear. Let's go ahead and look at our correlation coefficient, just because we know that this storm does have a history of producing a tornado back into Limestone County. We're getting into some of those brighter yellows, but I'm still not 100% confident in that. Again, no confirmed reports of a tornado on the ground in southern Middle Tennessee, so definitely a little bit of good news there. Now, look at this area of increased wind shear here, and if we look at our storm relative velocity, again, so the wind shear, if we look here, we're talking about some really impressive wind shear just to the north of Poplar Hill. So if you're in Poplar Hill, you really need to be getting into your tornado safe place, because we're talking about some really impressive wind shear, but we're also talking about really broad rotation, where the rotation really does not look all that impressive on the Huntsville radar. But if we look at the Columbus radar, then the rotation does look much more impressive. So if you're in Poplar Hill, you need to be in your tornado safe place. If you're in Elkton, you're going to want to be in your tornado safe place. You still have a couple of minutes, but this storm is going to be crossing the I-65 corridor here in the next few minutes. Radar just updated and the rotation kind of broke up a little bit, so we could call that a little bit of good news, but this storm has been somewhat cyclical over the last several minutes. Over about the last half hour now, this storm has been incredibly cyclical in that it's, even over every couple of radar scans, the storm has been strengthening and weakening.
Hey, Jordan.
Yes, ma'am.
We just got a new tornado warning for Limestone, Madison. This is going to go until 12:30.
So Limestone and Madison counties, and that's going to, you said until 12:30?
Yes. It also includes Moore in Lincoln and Tennessee.
Okay, so Moore in Lincoln County in Tennessee, and then at this point, Madison County, and that's going to run until 12:30. So we're kind of taking all of this into account and issuing a really far downstream tornado warning. Did the National Weather Service indicate whether there's any confirmed damage or anything like that?
No, nothing yet.
So no confirmed damage as far as this storm is concerned, but we are going to go ahead and reissue the tornado warning. So tornado warning now in effect for Madison County. That's going to run until 12:30 a.m. Madison, Limestone County, that's going to run until 12:30. Again, with the new tornado warning, no confirmed reports of anything on the ground, but we are going to run.
I just got some new information from the Weather Service, Jordan. They said that they did that to cover multiple areas of broad rotation. They're primarily concerned west of Elkton and then also near Elkmont.
So Elkton and Elkmont. Yeah, so that is, and we've been looking at that. So let's go to that. So let's go Elkton and Elkmont, both of which at this point are showing up on the map. So here's what we're looking at. So what Emily was kind of saying is this is more of a precautionary thing. We want everybody to kind of take note. We want everybody to stay safe. So here's Elkmont, and then here's Elkton. So we're going to be focused on this large area here. Okay, so you can kind of see where we're talking about the darker reds, getting into some of the brighter pinks, getting into some of the brighter purples. That's going to be the strongest part of this storm, and I can about guarantee that if I turn on the lightning counter, there's probably going to be a great amount of lightning associated with this, and there 100% is. So what we're talking about is this kind of large swath of, Emily was saying, what she was saying is we're kind of talking about this, and I'll go ahead and circle this right here. So here's Elkton, right? Emily mentioned Elkton, and then she also mentioned Elkmont. Okay, so we're talking about then where these two lines kind of segued here, this area of broad rotation. So this is a large area, and I can understand that. But what we're also doing is being very clear in telling you that we're talking about an area of really, really broad rotation. But we're certainly going to be taking that into account. So just to the north of Elkmont, again, moving to the northeast of Elkmont, as a matter of fact, north of Thatch, at this point, north of Holland Gin, kind of close to Ardmore. If you're in Ardmore, you really need to be getting into your tornado safe place. If you're in Elkton, you need to be in your tornado safe place. Bryson, up in southern Middle Tennessee, Cache Point, you need to be in your tornado safe place. And then we begin to talk about areas in northern Madison County. But here's what I think is going to happen is these storms are moving to the east-northeast. And I think a lot of this broad rotation is, for the most part, staying up in southern Middle Tennessee. Now, if this activity were to decide to move a little further to the east, then I think we're going to end up talking about a bigger concern for northern Madison County. And if we do end up talking about a big concern for northern Madison County, we're not going to be talking about the Huntsville metro area. We're not even going to be talking about Alabama A&M. We're not going to be talking about Meridianville or Hazel Green. We're going to be talking about areas north of Meridianville and Hazel Green. Bobo, for example. Now, I know Bobo's not directly near Meridianville or Hazel Green, but we're going to be talking about areas a little further to the north, should this storm end up moving a little more to the east. And right now, over the last several minutes, what this storm has done is it's really begun to track more north and then a little bit to the east. So What this storm is really doing is moving up into southern Middle Tennessee, and Emily said they accounted for that when they issued the new tornado warning that's going to run until 12:30. So they've accounted for that. Lincoln County up in southern Middle Tennessee, that's going to run until 12:30. Again, Lincoln County. I didn't mean to select Lincoln County twice, but Emily also mentioned Moore County up in southern Middle Tennessee that's going to run until 12:30. So we have Lincoln and Moore counties up in southern Middle Tennessee that's going to run until 12:30. Limestone and Madison counties, that's also going to run until 12:30. I would anticipate, and I can say this with a level of confidence, I would anticipate that it's more than likely Limestone County is probably going to get dropped early. I don't think Limestone County is going to be talking about a tornado warning until 12:30. So we're going to be focused on the area of rotation just to the south of Elkton, right along the I-65 corridor. As a matter of fact, we're beginning to cross the I-65 corridor. It looks like we're going to be watching an area of rotation there, and something we're going to continue to pay attention to here over the next several minutes. So that's going to be our main focus right now. Across North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee is going to be this area up in southern Middle Tennessee. So tornado warning in effect for Lincoln County and Giles County until 11:45. And then Lincoln County, that's going to run until 12:30. And then that also goes along with our Madison County tornado warning. That's also going to run until 12:30. But rest assured, as it stands right now, the big concern is definitely going to be up in southern Middle Tennessee. Ardmore, up into Elkton, up into Bryson. I think that's definitely going to be the big concern as far as anything tornadic is kind of applied here. I think we're going to be mostly focusing on southern Middle Tennessee. At this point, I think a lot of our threat is even beginning to move out of Limestone County. So it'll be interesting to see how this shapes up over the next few minutes, because what's been happening here is that a lot of this activity, like I was saying, has been moving more north and then a little less to the east. Still moving to the east, but at the same time, a lot of this activity has been moving a little further to the north. So again, if you're in Ardmore, I want you to be in your tornado safe place. Elkton, you should have been there already. If you're not in your tornado safe place in Elkton, you really need to be in your tornado safe place. And I really liked what Emily said earlier. Now is not the time to try and go out and take a picture of a tornado, because it's 11:30 at night. It's dark outside. And we're talking about some incredibly heavy rain. So if there is a tornado on the ground, it is going to be rain wrapped. So it is going to be impossible to see if there is actually a tornado on the ground. So let's go back over to our velocity image again. It still looks like we're talking about some relatively decent rotation here. I'm kind of sitting just to the south of Elkton at this point, continuing up into Bryson. It broadens up Elkton up into Bryson, but we are crossing the I-65 corridor as we speak. Let's throw on the lightning counter. And it looks like the lightning is actually going to be displaced a little bit from that main area of rotation. So let's go back again. Tornado warning for Lincoln County. That runs until 12:30. Here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to click this velocity image here. And you can kind of see that we're talking about some broad rotation. And the National Weather Service kind of hinted at this. They didn't really imply that we were talking about incredibly strong rotation. They did kind of mention that the rotation was definitely a little more broad. And then I also think the strongest part of this rotation is definitely up in southern Middle Tennessee. So for our North Alabama folks, a little bit of good news for you is that it looks like the strongest part of this storm is definitely sitting up in southern Middle Tennessee. For our southern Middle Tennessee folks, that means we obviously need to be paying a little more attention. So still looks like we're talking about some broad rotation beginning to move out of Elkton just to the north of Ardmore, right around Cache Point. If you're in Cache Point, know anybody in Cache Point, Blanche, both of those locations, you need to be in your tornado safe place. because we are talking about some broad rotation. We're talking about a very powerful thunderstorm that does have the possibility of producing a tornado. And again, it's a possibility. We have no confirmed reports of a tornado on the ground right now. We did have confirmed reports of a tornado warning back on the ground in northern Limestone County. Now that was right around the Leicester area, I believe. But again, no confirmed reports that anything is on the ground right now. So if you're in Ardmore, Cache Point, Blanche, again, all of these locations, you need to be heading into your tornado safe place. So tornado warning in effect for Lincoln County, that's going to run until 12:30. Tornado warning in effect for Giles County, that's going to run until 11:45. And the way this storm is moving, I would anticipate that Giles County is probably going to be dropped from the tornado warning. I would anticipate that they're going to be dropped at 11:45. Now, I can't 100% speak for what the National Weather Service office up in Nashville is going to do with Giles County, but I feel like we can speak with a level of confidence that they may drop Giles County at 11:45, though there is still a lot of lightning. As a matter of fact, almost all of the lightning with this storm is sitting up in Giles County in southern Middle Tennessee. Very little lightning is sitting in North Alabama. No activity in northern Madison County. So it is important to note that Madison County is under a tornado warning. Now, this is more of a precautionary thing. Northern Madison County, though, is under a tornado warning. Now, this is just a small portion of Madison County. The Huntsville Metro is not included in this tornado warning. Again, the Huntsville Metro area not included in the tornado warning. Fayetteville is included in the tornado warning. Ardmore is included in the tornado warning. So tornado warning in effect for Giles and Lincoln counties up in southern Middle Tennessee. Giles is going to run until 11:45. Lincoln County is going to run until 12:30, as is the northern Madison County tornado warning. That is also going to run until 12:30. So let's go ahead and zoom back in on this area here. We're heading up into Giles and Lincoln County. We're going to go essentially right where all of the lightning is. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this area here. We're just to the north of Ardmore. As a matter of fact, I displaced us a little bit further to the west than I would have liked to do. So let's go back over this way, Elkton up to Bryson. Again, a lot of lightning associated with this storm. Moving just to the east of Elkton at this point. So if you're in Elkton, you're almost in the clear. I want you to remain in your tornado safe place, though, for the next couple of minutes until you are safely out of the clear. So here's Giles County. Here's Lincoln County. We're kind of on the edge of Giles and Lincoln County at this point. Now, the Giles County tornado warning, that's going to run until 11:45. The Lincoln County tornado warning, that's going to run until 12:30. Radar just updated, and it kind of looks like the strongest part of this storm has officially moved out of Giles County. So would not be the least bit surprised if Giles County is dropped from the tornado warning at 11:45. Emily, has the National Weather Service by any chance said anything about Limestone County? Okay, so we'll stick with the Limestone County tornado warning. And currently, Limestone County is included. They have one that runs until 11:45, but it's the confirmed part of that tornado warning. I would anticipate that that's going to be allowed to expire at 11:45. So we're going to begin to clean up some of our boxes here, and I would anticipate that in the next couple of minutes, we're going to be left with the Lincoln County and the Madison County tornado warnings. I would anticipate that we're going to end up being left with both of those until 12:30, and we're probably, it's not a guarantee, but we're probably going to lose the 11:45 tornado warnings at 11:45.
Limestone was just dropped.
And speak it into existence, I suppose. So, but Limestone is technically, were they dropped from everything? Because technically they're included in the 12:30 tornado warning as well.
It just says that expires the tornado warning for Limestone.
Okay, so we'll see what happens when the polygon goes away. Because I believe technically Limestone County is partially included in the 12:30 tornado warning, but the polygon should be going away here within about the next couple of minutes. So
It is the 11:45 one.
Okay, so it's the 11:45 one. I believe they're still under a tornado warning until 12:30, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they end up dropping that as well. So our main area of interest is going to be to the north of Blanche. At this point, we're up into southern Middle Tennessee, not even in Madison County at this point. So Madison County is under a tornado warning. Places like Bobo, places like Fisk, Hazel Green kind of on the edge here. But at this point, Hazel Green is just barely to the south of the tornado warning. But the big concern is not at all going to be in Madison County. The big concern is going to be Cache Point, Taft, Blanche. Those locations are going to be under the tornado warning. Giles County has also gotten a flood advisory, and flooding is something that we're gonna talk about. And I know Emily was talking about this during Fox 54 News at 9. She was talking about a lot of the rain that we were going to get from this storm, and we were also talking about how this storm was relatively slow moving. These storms have only been moving at about 45 or 50 miles per hour. That's kind of slow. So what these storms are able to do is dump a large amount of rain in a very short period of time. So again, here's what we're going to continue to watch. We're going to continue to watch this area of really broad rotation just to the north of Cache Point, back to the northwest of Taft, directly to the north of Blanche. So we're up into southern Middle Tennessee at this point. We're up into Lincoln County. Okay, so here's the Alabama-Tennessee state line, the thick, bold, solid line. There's northern Madison County. You can see Bobo, you can see Fisk, northern Madison County, right? We're up into Lincoln County. So this is Lincoln County up in southern Middle Tennessee. That tornado warning is going to run until 12:30. But this rotation is really starting to broaden up. This, like, a lot. I'll switch it back over. So you can kind of even see it better here on our storm relative velocity, that we're talking about some really broad rotation at this point. At this point, I would have a hard time believing that anything is on the ground. So, again, talking about really broad rotation, just to the north of Blanche. And you can tell, here's how I can tell that this rotation is really broad. And we were talking about this a few minutes ago. So the reds and the greens, winds moving in different directions towards and away from the radar site. And if we were talking about really tight rotation, what we would end up getting here, the reds and the greens would kind of be touching. Winds moving at different directions, the reds and the greens are touching, the tighter that rotation is going to be. But then when we're getting into where we're talking about this really thick gray area, getting in between these winds that are moving in two different directions, that means while there might be rotation, that rotation is going to be incredibly broad. And when you're talking about broad rotation, that's not really what you're looking at as far as tornado development is concerned. Let's go over to our shear rate. Now, we are talking about a little bit of wind shear here, especially to the south of Blanche, where you're getting into some of the brighter greens, getting into some of the darker reds. So wind shear is a change in wind speed and wind direction. Most importantly, wind direction as you go up in altitude. And so that means as you go up in altitude, right, there is a lot of natural rotation there. And as a matter of fact, the radar just updated. We lost the really good wind shear just to the south of Blanche. But when you're talking about a lot of that natural rotation because of that change in wind direction, that's a good indicator that you're talking about something tornadic. So I actually want to go ahead and redraw my circle, and then we'll see if it aligns. So we're not really talking about, unless I'm missing something, and I don't think I am, we're not really talking about any sort of a threat for northern Madison County. So we're going to continue to pay attention to this area here. It's going to be just east of Blanche, just to the north of Taft, right over Coldwater, as a matter of fact. This is going to be our area of increased wind shear. Let's go over to our velocity image. Again, we're talking about really broad rotation here up in southern Middle Tennessee. And this is Lincoln County up in southern Middle Tennessee, where we do have that tornado warning that's going to run until 11:30. At this point, this storm has done a relatively good job at kind of sticking with its broad rotation. That's what I'm weakening trend would be the better term there. It's been sticking with the weakening trend for the last several minutes now. So that's some encouraging news there. But we are still talking about some really broad rotation up in southern Middle Tennessee. Just waiting to see if we're going to get any updates here from the National Weather Service here over the next couple of minutes. So here's what we're talking about. We're talking about a tornado warning in effect for Madison County, talking about a tornado warning in effect for Lincoln County, Madison County in North Alabama, Lincoln County up in southern and Middle Tennessee. Both of those are expected to run until 12:30. We're going to leave Madison. Okay. So it looks like we're going to stick with Madison and Lincoln counties until 12:30. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out in just a second. There we go. So I want to go ahead and zoom out here, and I kind of want to look at the Tennessee Valley as a whole. So we're going to throw on our main radar product here because that's what makes the most sense. So we're talking about a lot of rain back across northwest Alabama, Lauderdale, Colbert, down into Lincoln County, Lawrence County, Limestone County. We're talking about a lot of rain, a lot of thunder. Maybe we're talking about a little bit of lightning, emphasis here on a little bit of lightning. Just some general run-of-the-mill thunderstorms west of the I-65 corridor at this point. I'm just reading an update. Sometimes it's easier for Emily to text me updates than it is for her
to scream over you.
Okay, so here's what we're looking at. We're talking about a tornado warning in effect for Madison County in North Alabama. That's supposed to run until 12:30, but here's what Emily and I are having a very difficult time, and I was asking Emily some very deep meteorological questions that I guess I didn't need her answering on television. Here's what Emily and I are trying to figure out. Emily and I don't see much of a threat in Madison County. So tornado warning in effect for Madison County, that's going to run until 12:30, but there's also a tornado warning in effect for Lincoln County up in southern Middle Tennessee. That is also going to run until 12:30, but it looks like if we're going to be talking about any sort of concern at all, it is going to be the threat up in southern Middle Tennessee. And at this point, we're just simply talking about some very broad rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here because I know this looks like a lot and I hit the left mouse button. So I'm going to go ahead and go back over here. So at this point, we are well north of Madison County. I don't really think there's a threat of a tornado in northern Madison County. So let's focus on the area up in southern Middle Tennessee, where we're talking about incredibly broad rotation. If there is anything, if you're in Fayetteville, you should be in your tornado safe place because you're included in the tornado warning. I want you to understand that there is no confirmed reports of a tornado on the ground. But if you're in Fayetteville, you need to be in your tornado safe place just because we are talking about the really broad rotation. There's no signs on the radar at all of any rotation in Madison County. And that's what I was asking Emily about a little bit ago. I was asking her, simply put, if there was anything that I was missing in northern Madison County that I believe the folks in northern Madison County need to be concerned with. But I don't think Emily can find what I'm missing either. So I can confidently say that if we're talking about any sort of a threat for anything tornadic, now if you're in Winchester, and I know we have a lot of we have a lot of viewers in Winchester. If you're in Winchester, you are not included in the tornado warning. Estill Springs, we may not have as many up in Estill Springs, also not included in the tornado warning. Belleville, Fayetteville, Bellevue are all included in the tornado warning. This storm does look like it has weakened quite a bit. Yes, we're still talking about the very heavy rain, but it does look like it has weakened quite a bit. So the rotation here is incredibly broad, beginning to move into Fayetteville, beginning to move into Liberty, but we're talking about some incredibly broad rotation. And I'll look at the other velocity image here. And again, it's not really looking all that impressive. Emily, I believe the hand tracker might have just quit on me. So again, let's focus on.
I'll just run it for you.
Thank you. So if we look at Fayetteville, we're talking about some incredibly broad rotation. So if you're in Fayetteville, I want you to be in your tornado safe place, and maybe we're looking at an area really far to the north of Fayetteville, but at that point, you're talking about really far northern Lincoln County, where I don't think you can get us up here. So let's go back and look at the whole radar, I guess. That's what I want to do. I want to look at the entire radar as a whole. And if we can, actually switch over to the Columbus, Mississippi radar, and let's look at this activity back here in northeast Mississippi. I just want to see if anything active is going on there. So Emily's zooming out, and we're looking all the way back into Mississippi. So there's a severe thunderstorm warning in central and south Mississippi. That's not going to be of any concern across the Tennessee Valley. So this is a lot of good news. Now, this is an incredibly worked over environment, but it is some incredibly good news. But at the same time, Russellville, all the way up to Florence, all the way up into Laredo, back down into Haleyville. We're not talking about any severe thunderstorm warnings there. We're not talking about any tornado warnings there. We're just talking about some general run-of-the-mill thunderstorms. So definitely some good news there. So it looks like really the only concern we have, Fayetteville, up in southern Middle Tennessee. So if you're in Fayetteville, you need to be getting into your tornado safe place, because that's where we're talking about the really broad rotation. Otherwise, I really don't see a lot of impressive rotation. So let's go back, and I'm going to pull up. Let's go back to the Huntsville radar. Let's go and zoom back in on Fayetteville. So I should just do this. I'm going to do this the easy way. Let's just take this and zoom right in on Fayetteville. Okay, so back to Fayetteville we go, where we've been talking about this stronger thunderstorm. So if you're in Fayetteville, you need to be in your tornado safe place. At this point, I can confidently say there is no tornadic threat in northern Madison County. I can say that with a really high level of confidence, that there is no threat of anything tornadic as of this moment in northern Madison County. Because the only thing we're talking about as far as any sort of rotation is concerned is well up into southern Middle Tennessee. Again, at this point, we're talking about maybe an area, and it's still really broad. So we're really beginning to zoom in on Fayetteville here. I'll go ahead and circle this. This is about the only area of interest right now, and it's literally right over Fayetteville. And even this rotation isn't super held together. Now, we do have some areas of increased wind shear south of Fayetteville, but that's kind of displaced from our area of rotation as far as velocity imagery is concerned.